guys, in this spot, we're going to be checking out the brand new NECA Toys Aliens Defiance Xenomorph. Now, it's very unlikely you would ever display an alien figure such as this, but I've extended out as the limbs as far out as I possibly could just to tell you how tall the figure stands if you want to know the exact height. If you extend everything and have the legs straight up, the Xenomorph from Aliens Defiance stands exactly 10 inches tall. One of the things it comes included with is a display stand with a relatively short neck. There's only the adjustable factor to it really at the top where the looplet is. And while it necessarily won't fit around the waist, it fits fine for my purpose at least to have it cupped around basically the thigh area of the alien. So when you're bending and you're having it more in a squat shape or squat pose, the stand actually does come along quite handy, even though it's a relatively short stand. One thing I wish that the stand actually could have done too is had a little peg, and then actually it had pegs on. Though you don't have much clearance on the underside foot portion, you could have put at least a hole there or something like that, so you could have just stood them on a display stand. As you could probably guess though, over the course of time, sometimes multiple joints on alien figures tend to get a little on the loose side. A clip probably come a little bit more handy, but I would prefer sometimes if they included peg holes on the undersides of their feet, so you could just stand them freely on a display stand, and then take whatever chances you get from loose joints over the course of time. So the figure itself is from the Aliens Defiance line, and it looks quite good. There's very few little subtle changes that alien figures go through from time to time, and some of them are a little bit more notable than others. I think what is the big kind of flag for this figure as what is uniquely different between the Aliens Defiance alien Xenomorph and, like, say for example other Xenomorphs, is the crown, or more importantly the top area of its head has a much wider fan to it. It's almost close to, not quite the same width mind you, but it's very close in decorative shape to that of like an alien queen. I do really like the scaling up the top. It actually kind of even looks like a Xenomorph as like a Klingon. A Klingomorph. Oh, hashtag Klingomorph. But that's kind of like the vibe I'm getting here from the Xenomorph here. It has a really good looking profile, and specifically it has a really great looking top crown or top dome sculpt to it. Now primarily most of the coloring on this guy is your darker browns or blacks, as we've seen before, and a wash of brown. Now, this is no new territory here. We've gone through a brown motif Xenomorph before. So again, it's all those little nuances and those little small details that really make this particular figure stand out. Coupled with the fact that he's got a slightly varied top crown or top dome to him, the front of the face has a little bit more of a visceral looking sculpt to it. It has a much more feral, if I can describe it that way. It doesn't have a very smooth front texture to it. Instead, it's got a very coarse and violent looking sculpt to it. I know that's probably the worst way to describe this. The mouth does open, and you've got the interior jaw, but it's not the easiest to get out, and I don't even know you can actually get it out. I mean, I've tried like little tweezers and stuff like that, but it's not the easiest to get out. Back in the day, of course, very super easy on these figures, because, like the old Kenner figures would have had like a little button or something that would have ejected the mouth. Now it's basically up to you, the collector, and maybe a pair of tweezers or something to kind of get in there. I don't think it's removable. It may very well be, but I don't think it is. What's interesting, though, is if you open the mouth, you can see that there's multiple rows. Not only do you have the main external row of teeth, but then you've got a secondary row on the inside, and then even still on top of that, you've got the smaller inner jaw, smaller inner mouth that's in there as well. It's very unique to see 2 rows of Xenomorph teeth, and then the smaller the smaller mouth inside of that. So that's one thing that this particular figure seems to have that's fairly unique also. Beautiful looking sculpt though on the side of the head. Really one of the coolest looking profiles in recent memory for a Xenomorph figure. The rest of the figure does keep a lot of the consistent trends still apparent. A lot of the same familiar things you've seen with Xenomorph seem to carry over here as well. He still has also the removable part here where you can then be able to bring the head a little further back. And a lot of times I don't find like it really brings the head back that much further. You know, I always feel like I'm struggling a lot of times to bring the head further back, so I don't generally do that myself. But that just unpegs. Of course, you got the Xenomorph tubes coming out from projecting itself from the back of its torso. The very, very long tail, also I might add, with a fairly small point. Now, these points on the ends of tails have varied as well, where some of them are a little wider, some of them almost have almost like a fish scale sculpt to it. This one keeps it pretty simple. All the more better, again, to impale through its victims, so to speak. The tail is a wireframe, of course, so you can be able to manipulate that any which way that you want. And I like that they still keep the tails as a, you know, as a wireframe, that you can always still manipulate that any which way that you want. Again, like this is not really going to be the way I'm going to display the Defiance alien. Of course, for all the cool little articulation points on these figures, generally I like to have them a little bit more on a crouching, you know, pose, which again, you can then rely on the clamp here, the clamp being slightly adjustable, to kind of clamp onto the leg. Depending again where you put the clamp on the figure, you can do it that way, or again if you could have the clamp kind of supporting the figure upright. The feet are slightly varied, a little bit more close together it seems, as versus the other Xenomorph foots. It almost kind of resembles more a human foot. Not that that would be what human feet look like, but the idea that you would have one predominant larger toe, and then you'd have a series of toes kind of closer together on the foot. There's even of course you got that little slight hind thumb, or you know, a back kind of ankle thumb there as well. But it seems like a much more closed together sculpt versus some of the other previous Xenomorphs. The legs stay pretty consistent with other releases, not too much different for it. So like if you were to have a takeaway from this particular figure, I think the takeaway more so is not while the body is very unique to itself. There will be little interesting tweaks and stuff here and there, but for me, like the takeaway is the top crown, is the top dome, and I think that is really where this particular Xenomorph would have an argument, a real good argument, as to why you could pick this figure up if, for example, you've been so collecting other Xenomorphs. Like, why would I want to pick this one up above all the other ones? Well, because it does have a very unique looking dome to it. What would I call it? The Klingomorph? Klingomorph. Love it. That would be awesome. Klingons turning into Xenomorphs. Well, Xenomorph, of course, coming from Klingons. Klingomorphs. Awesome. Let's run through its posability together. Its head does rotate all the way around. The mouth, of course, opens and closes, as we've already discussed. Shoulders hinge outward, as well as you get the full rotation going on there as well. There is also a swivel point right actually underneath where the ball joint of the torso, or a ball joint of the shoulder is. The shoulder actually more so is a universal joint, and then you've got the swivel right after that. The elbows do hinge with, I might add, a fairly loose arm. I kind of wish that's unfortunate. I think it's not across the board. It may very well just be my particular arm here. The hands do also rotate and hinge back and forth. You get your upper torso ball joint. And then for the legs, forward, back, and out, a double hinge on the knee. And then you get down to the more interesting aspects of it, where they get the additional hinge, kind of where like the lower calf would attach then to its secondary bend in the foot. And then you've also got this foot here rotates all the way around, a slight hinge up and down as well. The Klingomorph, the Alien's Defiance Xenomorph, is a really nice looking update to the regular Xenomorph figures that we get. There are varying, of course, changes that one Xenomorph figure goes from one to the other. There's not really a whole lot of times and opportunities where figures will be distinct from one another. So I really like this particular release because it gives a very unique looking shape to the top dome portion of the Xenomorph. The rest of the figure still does things very well, and NECA's the king when it comes to alien figures, and this alien figure is no exception, other than the fact it's got some really unique tweaks to it that I really think make this figure stand out from other Xenomorph figure releases. Today, once again, we were checking out the NECA Toys Aliens Defiance. This was the Xenomorph. If you guys like this video and certainly want to check out more videos, make sure you're hitting that like and subscribe button down below. You won't miss a beat when it comes to future videos coming onto this channel. And hey, if you're also a big fan of Aliens figures specifically, there's a playlist on this channel as well that you can go back and check out older videos and watch at your viewing pleasure. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.